Hi there, and welcome to your video on Photopea and how to make your photos look like professional photographers. In this video, we're going to talk about levels, curves, and vibrance. These are the three things that I do to every photo that I edit. This is the trick of why professional photographers' photos look better than photos that come straight out of the camera. I trust you with this trick. You can tell other people about it, but only if they're photographers, all right? Because this is how we make money. It's super easy, and I'm going to give you the secret right now. So first things first, I'm going to make my screen slightly smaller. So I'm going to pop myself up over here maybe. Perfect. So I have gone to Photopea. All I did to get to Photopea was type in photopea.com and ta-da, I'm in Photopea. All right. So what I have done is I have opened an image. I'm using an image taken by one of our lovely students. So I go to File, up here in my top menu, File, Open. Dun, dun, dun. Dun, dun, dun. That file was image 5694. I'm going to open that file. It was in my downloads. So now I have image 5694. I'm going to get rid of that one. All right. In Photopea, as photographers, we mostly live in the layers section, which is over here on the right, down there. Anyway, in this layer section, this is where we will start adding our adjustment layers. This is where we'll start adding levels. This is where we'll start adding curves. And this is going to make our photo look better. This is a beautiful photo as it is, but you will see the difference of what levels and curves will do. You do have this toolbar on the side here, and these are useful at times in doing some editing, but we're not going to deal with them right at this moment. One thing I do want to show you is that when you hover your mouse over the tool and leave it there, a little box will pop up and tell you what tool that is. So this is the blur tool, gradient tool, all of those things. What we are going to deal with is the layers panel over here. I've got my image, it's on the background. What I want to do is I'm going to go straight down. There's a button down here that's a circle. Half of it is filled in, half of it is not filled in. This is the new adjustment layer button. So I'm going to click new adjustment layer. And then it's going to give me a lot of choices. What I want to do first, and I do this with every photo. First thing I do is I go to levels, and then I'm going to go to curves. There is a brightness and contrast. Do we use it? No, because brightness and contrast is for third graders. We want professional results. So we go to levels and curves, which is where we're going to do our brightness and our contrast. So levels first. When I click on levels, it's going to open this small little menu window over here. Notice if I want to hide that, it says PRO for properties. If I click that little button, it hides itself. Click it again, it pops back open. Okay, so if that happens, just open it back up. With my image, I want to be able to look at my image while I am making changes here. So I want to see this a little bit bigger. So I'm going to go up to view, and I can go to zoom in. But please note on these menus, you've got zoom in here, but you also have the shortcut that's listed right here. So zoom in, I'm on a Mac, and so it's that little curly Q command. If you're on a Chromebook, it should say Control Plus here. So just like in Photoshop, Photopea has zoom in as like Command or Control Plus or minus. So I can click zoom in, it can zoom me in. I can use my keyboard to zoom in and zoom out as well. So I'm going to actually zoom in. Wrong way. Sorry. I'll zoom in. I also want to move it over to the side. There's a little hand over here that I can click on, and then I can move this around in the workspace. Shortcut for that is, if I happen to be on a different tool, the space bar. The space bar is the shortcut to be able to move that around. All right, so I want to be able to see this and see my menus over here and see my layers panel over here. Looking at the layers panel, you can see that there's the background, which we had when we opened. I added an adjustment layer. This is my adjustment layer here. And this is where I change that adjustment layer. So levels. When we look at this is actually called a histogram. It's like a graph. This shows all the blacks and the whites in this image. It also shows midtones or grays. If you notice down here, I've got a black square, a gray square, and a white square. What I want to do is I'm going to grab this white square and I'm going to drag this white square over. If you think about this as a mountain, I want to bring this square over to right where the trail begins going up the mountain. So if you can start seeing the difference right away. So this is with all of the whites. This is me saying, hey, there's a lot of white in there that doesn't have any information, is just kind of clouding things up. So I'm going to move this over. Now my whites are brighter. Same thing with my black. As soon as I can see the trail start going up, that's where I'm going to move my black slider over towards. You can see the shadows start to darken as I move it over. One cool thing about the layers panel, there is an eyeball over here. With this eyeball, it'll allow me to hide that layer. So it's like turning it off, and then I can turn it back on. So just with levels, you can see how I have brightened this photo, made the whites whiter, made the blacks blacker. Usually I do not play with the midtones unless my image is like overexposed or underexposed, like too dark or too light. Then I play with my midtones, but normally I do not play with the midtones. All right. So that's levels. Already better. Let's make it even better. From levels, you go to curves. So go to the adjustment layer, on the bottom, and then go up to curves. So curves is a way of adding a little bit more refined contrast. If you look at this is that same histogram, all the blacks and whites of the image. And then there's a line cutting through the graph all the way across. All right. If we talk about these little squares as quadrants, in this upper quadrant up here in the top, I'm going to pick a spot on that line, maybe about halfway. You'll get to where you'll figure out like whether you want it up here or down here, but somewhere in this quadrant, I'm going to grab this line and I'm just going to pop it up just a tad. Notice if I go really far with it, it's blowing out all of my whites. So you don't want to do that unless we're working on like abstract photography. Then you can do some crazy stuff with these curves. But for this, we're trying to make it look as realistic as possible, the way that we saw it when we shot it. So what I'm going to do is I want to make this line into a slight S curve, like S as in seashells. So this is the top of the S. It's going to go up a tad. I'm going to find this line down here. I'm going to go in this bottom quadrant. And I'm going to grab this line and I'm going to pull this line down a tad. And you can see this has made a very slight S curve. Notice the further down I pull it, the darker it gets. And I'm losing some quality inside that flower. So I want to keep an eye on my shadows and make sure I'm not pulling them down too far. Sometimes it's just really, really slight. But if you want to change your midtones, if you just kind of want to brighten things up a little bit or darken things down, you can manipulate the middle of this curve if you would like to as well. If you happen to get a dot on here that you don't really want on there anymore, because you can add as many dots as you want, just grab the dot and pull it off the edge and your curve will go away. I mean, that dot will go away on your curve. So I have a slight curve line. You can see I'm going to turn it off and turn it on. I've just boosted the contrast just a little bit. Look at that ice down here. I'm going to turn both of those layers off and then I'm going to turn them back on. It has created such contrast between this section and this section. The last thing I want to do, so I did levels, curves. I want to boost my saturation of this color because the idea of this photo was the like springtime in snow time. So I'm going to go back to my adjustment layers. I'm going to go to Vibrance. All right. And me, I like a saturated photo. So I usually on most of my photos, I boost the Vibrance at least by 3, like at least a little bit. And then I boost the saturation just a little bit as well. And you can see it's very slight, off, on. This is a very slight move. If you boost the Vibrance, it's going to really boost the color. If you really boost the saturation, oh, I have it turned off. Like it's not changing. See how it's like tons more pink, the snow is getting way more blue. I don't want to boost it so that it looks fake. I just want to boost it just a tad, just to kind of sink in that color. Okay. So it's just a slight Vibrance. It's just making that red sing a little bit. All right. So I'll turn that back on. In a sense, every photo I do these things. I do levels, curves, and Vibrance. Once you're done with this photo, you're going to go to File. I'm going to go to Export As, and I'm going to export this as a JPEG. I'm not going to save over my original file, but this is where you can change the size of it, the quality of it. Sometimes I like to go around 80%. That is fine. I want to say this must be the size of the image already. And this is where it's a JPEG. I could choose a TIFF as well, but I'm just going to be putting these on Padlet and my website. So I want them as a JPEG. And then I'll click save. It's going to open up my computer and it's going to ask me, hey, where do you want to save this? This is important though. I know when I was looking for this photo, I knew that it was image number 5694. If I want to find that original reference, I want to keep that number in my file name. So I come over here and I'm going to call this pink flower. So I'm going to title it. And then sometimes I put like an underscore and 1 because I might have 3 or 4 different versions of pink flower. 01. Sometimes instead of pink flower or in addition to pink flower, I will add the date. So 02/22/21. And I just run the date together because I know in my mind when I see anything that ends in like 21 or 20, this is the date that I edited this. So I will go and I'm going to clean up the end of this, get that 1 off of there because I already made one. So I want to pay attention to my file names because when I go and search for this later, if I don't know where it is, I can type pink flower into my search for the computer and find this file. So I'm going to save it as a JPEG. It's going to save to my files. And ta-da, that is how you edit levels, curves, and Vibrance. There's a lot of other things we can do in this, but every photo that you do, you should do levels, curves, and Vibrance. You can do this on your phone as well, doing brightness, contrast, and Vibrance in your editing sections in your photo app. I highly suggest any photo that you turn in for a photography class or into any gallery or give to anybody, you do these steps on it to boost the blacks and the whites. It makes a great photo. All right, thanks for tuning in. I will see you soon.